Welcome to Jet Set Learn, the podcast where STEM and aviation takes off. Today, my guest is Malissa Briones. She's a operations manager at a very interesting company called Electra. We'll get into exactly what Electra does and what it's looking to bring to the industry. But the most important and interesting part of the podcast is getting to know my friend Melissa. So, welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you,
Hey,
Micah?
good morning. Thanks for joining me up with this today. So, like I just mentioned, you work at Electra as an operations manager, right? But before kind of getting into all of that, just tell us a little bit about you, where you come from, and then maybe your early professional development.
Brace yourself. I have different backgrounds, so this would be an interesting conversation. I grew up in Trinidad, and for college, I decided I wanted to go to college in the US. So I applied. I got a full scholarship to St. Francis College, which is in Brooklyn Heights in New York. There, I thought I'll just do maybe marketing or IT. But I took one free elective and I did an aviation class, Introduction to Aviation, and I changed my major immediately. That class was fun. It was so much fun. I was one out of two females in in the class. So that was the fun part, You're surrounded by all these guys with all their ideas. And then here I come with my little old self, being female, not in the round, have no aviation experience. They were willing to help me. And I thought that was the nicest part of it was that, I had zero idea but fell in love with it. I had to do the program really fast. The aviation program at St. Francis was closing. So we moved the program from the private college environment to the city college environment. So it moved over to York College in Queens. So that's where I spent part of my internship. But I was happy to say that I did my major in 2 years. So I was practically done by the time I was in my senior year. It was coasting. Everyone else was in high gear for me to get stuff done. I was done.
Hey, so real quick, just a kind of question, just so I can make sure I stay caught up with you. So this program and what is the degree? Can you say that again? What that was like? So it wasn't because you were doing marketing and kind of business at first, right?
Right.
And then you
I
went into
switched
to what kind of aviation degree was it?
aviation business studies.
Oh, aviation business studies.
Yes.
Awesome, that's cool.
So I did the business side of it. And when it was time to do my master's, which I took a 5 year period between graduating from my undergrad to grad school, I did a dual master's at Embry-Riddle in aviation aerospace operations and aviation aerospace management.
Oh, so you were serious about this aviation business application because a lot of times we
Yes.
hear and we talk mostly about what we see mechanics and pilots and
Yes.
mechanics, but there's a whole other side. And this is really one of the main reasons why we do the podcast and have guests like yourself on is, hey, let's look at the other aspects of it. And so I'll be honest with you. I did not, you're the first person I've met that was like, hey, I studied aviation business. You know what I mean? And so
hmm
really, really interesting here. So keep going. Sorry, I just had to like express that a little bit. Yeah.
You're not the first person to say it because that's a thought process in aviation. You're either an engineer or a pilot or a mechanic. But my thought process was it's a business at the end of the day. And all businesses need management, they need operations. And that was my way to think outside of the box.
Okay.
Um, you know, I knew that aviation is a small niche that if you don't get in, then what are you going to do with this degree? So I did the business, the operations and the management part of it, but you know, concentrating on aviation, but making sure that if I didn't get into aviation, I was still able to get a job.
Yeah.
And after uh, undergrad, I started working on the Upper West Side at a boutique hotel as the accounting manager. I did that for I would say 3 years, 3.5 years. And then I decided, well, while I lived in New York, I knew New York was not my lifestyle. You know, I don't have to say to everyone what New York is. It's a nice place. It gave me the confidence and the experience to be who I am, because I feel as if I went to a different school, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. You know, it's
Yeah.
either you sink or you swim. So I swam out of New York
You
and I
swam out
moved
of New
on
York. I like that.
real fast.
Yeah.
And I moved to Virginia because I like the suburb feel of it. You know, you were close to DC, but you still have the free parking and the peace of mind.
So what was your job when you moved to Virginia?
So as you remember, I told you hold on to your seats.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
moved. I moved into the education sector of College Board. So they're the administrators of SATs and PSATs.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I was their cash receipt specialist, which means you didn't pay your bill. I implemented the you're not going to get your score type of deal, because I came from, New York, where everything is for profit. And this is education where it's like, oh, well, we'll give them their scores. No, 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 no. We're not going to write off anything. It's not going to go in bad debt. It's going to be you don't pay your fees, you don't get your scores.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So a question on that then. So your degree, your master's, was there anything about that? Because this is different than what you actually studied and what you're doing now. But was there anything that you did then during your studies that applies to this particular job right now? The first job you had.
yes,
Okay. What what
yes,
what aspect was it?
everything. So for my master's, we did aircraft design.
Yeah.
So I did both space and aerospace. So, just understanding the whole process. So you do human factors, you do security, you hit every piece of it. Unfortunately, my position at Electra gives me that chance to see all pieces of it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I did a degree in something and then my job has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with it,
Yeah,
which I can
yeah.
check
So
that
at,
box.
at, at Electra, yeah, definitely. But this first job that you had when you got to Virginia,
Mhm.
before you started working at Electra, was any of the operations management studies and your degrees, did it apply to that particular job where you're
Not really.
not really? Well, I mean, appreciate the honesty because people's pathway, and a lot of people call it pipelines or whatever else, but their pathway to get into where you're doing now is usually very not the most direct. And so, I mean, this is an example of it, but I'm sure there's plenty of laughs or whatever else at that job that now maybe applies at Electra.
That's it. So when I started at Electra, so this is how my entire roundabout way of getting to where I am today, all connected. So all the other jobs following College Board, I went back into the hotel industry. I worked for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I came back into bioengineering, and that's the last job I had before Electra. They were all accountant.
Okay.
I got into accounting as the first accounting manager of Electra.
Oh, okay.
That's how I got my foot in the door. So the 17 years of experience helped.
Oh, wow.
It got me to where I wanted to be. And when I did my interview with JP and he asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, I'll be honest with you. I'm applying for the accounting manager position, but I want to be your operations manager in 5 years. It happened in 1 year
Oh, wow.
because the chief of staff left and we didn't have an operations manager. So I went to him and said, I'll help keep the walls up, the roof over fire. Give me this chance. And he did, he accommodated that dream that I had to do operations versus accounting. Accounting was a job. It wasn't something that I would like to say, oh, well, given the chance, I will. This is what I really wanted to do. It was just a way, and God's way of saying, do this, and I'll get you into the pathway you want to be.
Yeah, I really like that because again, kind of doing outreach and working with people, yeah, try to always advise them to be ready.
Hmm.
So like the door isn't always going to be open, but you got to be ready to step through it.
That's it.
And there was things that was preparing you to do the first thing to get you through the first door, but the door to
Hmm.
the room that you were actually aiming for had needed to open up. You were planning on it 5 years and it opened up sooner, but either way, you were ready. And I'll go out on a limb and suspect that even when you were doing the accounting, which is not necessarily where you were wanting to be, you were
Hmm.
doing it well and with intention. You weren't just gaffing
Yes.
it off because doing things, in preparation, whatever you're laying your hand to, and doing it
Hmm.
well and with intention, and putting into it, and that actually makes you ready to step through the door when it's open. I know that's
Yes.
been my experience, and I'm kind of assuming that's the case with you. And
It it is. I did the best that I could with what I had. There was a point in time where I served as the interim controller because the controller left. And JP did give me the option to be the controller. He's like, you can go get your CPA and you can be the controller of Electra. That's not what I wanted to do. I really wanted to do the operations. And when that opportunity came, as I said, New York prepared me for certain things. And one of it was being my own best cheerleader. I had the nerves to say, I want this, give me a chance.
yeah.
Instead of saying, oh, well, maybe you remembered a year ago that in the interview I said I wanted to do this. He's busy, he's not going to remember what it is I said. But when I walked up to his door, knocked and said, remember in the interview I said this, give me this chance. So it prepared me to have the nerves of steel to approach the vice president of the company and ask for this chance. And I haven't turned back since.
Yeah.
It was a good opportunity to get in.
Cool. So we've been trying to get JP, the vice president, to come on, and we'll get him there. But I'll ask you this question. But so before really kind of get into what does the operations manager do in an aviation business, tell us a little bit about Electra, so we can like kind of. So what is Electra? What does it do? Like what's the, I guess, the mission right now of Electra?
So Electra is the awesome company that decided it's going to be the create the first hybrid electric aircraft with short landing and takeoff capabilities. And it has happened. The prototype is up in the air. It's everywhere. When it first flew in 2023, it was a big deal for us.
Yeah.
Um, when I started with the company, it was a hangar, boxes, and spiders. And to see this aircraft now being the feature point of most videos and most conversations,
Yeah.
it's something that you can't explain because it feels like you've seen this baby grow from just a concept to being now the prototype where we're going into producing the 9 passenger aircraft, and that's the next step for us, is the nine seat passenger aircraft with the same technology. So it's going to be fun. It's going to definitely have you know more attention, more video time. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, yeah.
That fun piece.
So we
um
we had the really fortunate opportunity to partner with you guys in an outreach event, a few months ago, and that was the first time obviously you and I met and got to
yeah.
see the prototype, got to see some of the things that led up to it, and the really just cool things that company is doing and things you guys are working up there. It's really exciting.
Yes.
And I'd like so during that activity, we flew the foundation's electric plane up there to you guys, and so it was
Hmm.
really cool to see, you know, the hybrid electric version with a different mission than the electric plane that we flew up there. But it was it's just really cool to see and meet people that are involved, with aviation itself. And so there's multiple businesses in aviation, and each one of those businesses needs an operations manager. Now, Electra is doing some really cool and innovative things. So, what is an operations manager for Electra? Like, what do you do on a day in and day out basis as the operations manager?
First, I start with wearing sneakers because my day is
Yes.
constantly running around. I never sit still, so it's hard for most people to find me. And that's because um, under my operations hat, I'm the interim IT manager, I'm the purchasing manager, I'm the compliance officer, and I'm the facilities manager.
Really?
Yes.
All right, so I got to ask this question. You listed five, maybe six jobs there. When you were studying, getting your master's, or were those five or six jobs in that course of study?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
It wasn't. It was because we were a startup, and when I joined, I was employee number 16 on the roster,
Okay.
but actually may have been like physically number 8 in the building. So as we grew, we needed coverage on different pieces. And since I did operations, it just happened to fall on my lap like, okay, well, you're the face that's sitting here, so you're going to do it. And I've been doing it for the last 2 years. So under my IT hat, we do have an outsourced vendor. However, I do the onboarding, so I do the laptop setup for incoming employees. So I procure those laptops, I get it set up, and then hand it over to the outsourced company. I try to do light IT administrative stuff. I do not have any IT background, just so we say that. So it was a learning experience for me. Under purchasing, I inherited purchasing because of being the first accounting manager. That was my job. It was part of, getting the purchase orders and stuff together. So when we expanded, it still remained under me because the new accounting person didn't have the capacity to do the accounting and the purchasing. So it stayed with me. I recently acquired the compliance officer role, and that's for import and export compliance, making sure that we meet the ITAR and the EAR, the regulations.
Can you
So,
real quick? Can you explain to the audience what ITAR is?
so it's the international. I can't remember the name, the acronym for it, but it's making sure it's on the defense side that all the data and the IP information that we share can be shared with foreign countries,
Yeah.
and it's not information for terrorist countries or information for countries that we do not trade with. If they are on the list of restricted countries, then we have to apply for an export license
Yeah.
or an import license, making sure that we follow the rules, the government rules.
Right.
And not following these rules can have some really significant circumstances on us,
Right.
where you're sharing information with countries like Cuba or Iraq or Afghanistan, those, or even worse, North Korea.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that we are protected on the inside and we're following the government rules about
Wait.
what needs to be
So
done.
it's a export/import kind of control
Yes.
group of regulations and policies, I guess.
Yes.
And that's really interesting because while Electra is home base here in America, the
Mhm.
aviation business market is global. And
Correct.
to understand that the U.S. government has at least quality or control measures in place and policies for businesses to follow to manage even whatever security issues may arise from the
Mhm.
use of this technology by other countries and those kind of things. So that was a business aspect that I think many, and it's not just with aviation, but it's very prevalent in aviation because the aviation industry crosses so many lines.
Yeah. And there's restrictions on even US and non-US employees. The US employees have access to certain information that our non-US employees have. So we have an office in Switzerland, and those Swiss employees do not have access to the US information. They can't because of the regulations.
Yeah.
Or if we have employees or contractors who are non-US, they can't have access to it as well. So it's interesting since I've just started being part of this process. I'm learning things as I go, and it's things you didn't think about that on a daily basis. You wouldn't think that non-US employees shouldn't have access to
Yeah, yeah.
some of the data. It's like we're the same company, we're after the same goal. But then when you think of it and you look at the rules and the regulations, you get a good understanding that there has to be certain regulations in place to avoid, the information being used for not good.
So is this export control slash import control, is that a function directly in line with a operations manager? Or is that like a function that you inherited, or like because you mentioned you kind of got involved with it because obviously it's as you guys started innovating, you started having to comply, with
Yes.
these probably early on because you guys are still growing. And I'm
Hmm.
asking in a minute how big you are, but so is that ITAR compliance slash enforcement an operations manager direct, or is there someone else or another position at the company that's really that's in charge with it as well?
Because it's so many legal terms involved, it may be for a legal department in a larger company. But because I guess I was just standing there at that point, like, here you
Yeah,
go. And I don't mind because it adds to my knowledge bucket, right?
yeah,
At the end of the day, I'm not just pinned into just being the operations manager. I was once described as the Swiss utility knife of the company. And I'm not sure if that's a good or bad at this
yeah,
point,
yeah,
but at least I have knowledge in so many things. I can be useful in any bucket.
yeah,
And I think that's a position that a lot of people don't like finding themselves in because they don't want to be pulled in many different directions. I get bored sitting still. So, being around the building doing so many different things at once, I like it. Um, and I feel like these days we don't have people who are willing to step outside of their zone. It's either I'm focused on flight physics or I'm focused on design. That's all they do. But we need people who can say, okay, I'll leave that to the experts, let them do the design, let them do the engineering, but I can step in into any bucket and help keep the business running. Because at the end of the day, while we're designing an aircraft, there's the need for people to support. You need the support staff.
yeah.
And being the operations manager is one of that. And I have a good example of this is totally not what I did in school, but I think I have a tendency to find myself into situations where it's not related to my degree. Earlier this week, we had someone choke in the kitchen. Yeah. Thankfully, one of the other engineers gave him the Heimlich, but we didn't have a process in place for an
Mm,
instance like this
yeah,
because we
yeah,
were so small for so long. And immediately it fell on me to do the incident report. So I had to figure out, do we need to file an incident report and who files it? Does it fall in under operations? Does it fall under HR or safety? Where does it fall? So I worked with another colleague and we figured out, no, we didn't have to file an incident report because he wasn't hospitalized.
mm.
He refused professional medical assistance. And so what I did was I found a part in OSHA that said, you don't have to do this because of this. I went in, I found a part for Virginia State, the labor laws, saying you didn't have to file a report. So I wanted that at the end of the day, if I didn't file a report, no matter who responsibility it was, we had proof to say we didn't have to. I
Yeah,
didn't want to come back around and kick us in the head that we didn't
yeah.
do the right thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's part of it too. Being the operations manager, you have to think on your feet quickly. A lot of people have the habit of, kicking the ball to someone else saying this isn't my responsibility. And at the end of the day, if you're the operations manager, it somehow falls on your lap that you have to do it. But thinking quick and trying to find the right process, I think is the most important piece. Like instead of being all flustered, oh my God, somebody just.
Yeah.
He's alive, so what are you fussing about, you know? Like, so he's okay, we move on.
So a question on that though, this is just really just educating me and even, our viewers as well. So if you did have to file an incident report, like who would you have filed it to? Is it to OSHA? Like who do you file it to?
I believe it's the Virginia Department of Labor.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's as far as I got. But since I didn't have to sweat that bucket, I didn't go
Yeah,
any
right,
further.
right, right. Yeah, yeah.
But I did reach out to senior leadership and say, this is what happened. This is why we're not filing the incident report. And now we need an action taken. We do need to come up with a process. You know, we exploded from just 15 employees to now we're almost at 50 employees. So we need to have eyes on not only the aircraft and building the aircraft, but the safety of the employees who are building the aircraft.
Right, yeah.
You know, we have to come up with policies. So that's something that just got triggered. So I'm waiting to hear back. What's the next process? And my recommendation was, let's not just have the responsibility of one person to file the incident report, but if there's a manager on site or a manager who witnessed what happened, then you do the incident report. Don't just pin it on one person. That one person may not even be on site when it happened.
Right, yeah, yeah.
So that was just my 2 cents to the plot. So we'll see what happens. But
So you
to everyone, be prepared.
so you really you answered one of the questions, and and that was how big is Electra now? You said almost 50.
Yes.
And then I think you said you're number 16 or 15?
16.
16. Okay.
Yeah.
So it really seems like your operations manager experience has really been impacted and tailored by the fact that it's a startup company and you guys are still growing and doing great things. And in order to keep pace with your growth, people have to think and work outside of standard or conventional lines such as yourself. And so
yes,
this is what I'm gathering from this. And so just revisiting real quick, when was Electra started? Like how old is it?
it started in 2020.
Okay.
John Langford started the company in 2020, and it started increasing in 21, where the major heads of departments came in. That's when JP came in, and I started in 2022.
Okay, that was it. Yeah, that was it. So 2022. So you've been there 3 years, and you've had
Yes.
the first year as the accountant manager, and then the last 2 years you've been shaping this operations manager and kind of understand that. While it sounds like bringing in a bunch of other jobs and tasks and duties or whatever else, and
Yes.
it's just as the company grows, you just have to, any kind of startup, everybody's doing everything right at the very beginning until you guys get up there. So Electra, you talked about the objective of bringing this hybrid electric personnel transport aircraft, 9-person personnel transport aircraft to the industry. What were the indications that you guys have seen that the industry is ripe for a hybrid solution? Like, what are the things that make this thing, this hybrid aircraft, and what is there a special name for it?
The 9-seater passenger aircraft will be called EL9.
Yeah. Okay.
Electra 9.
Yeah. So EL9. What were the indications that the industry, the market, more importantly, is ready for EL9? I guess is the question.
I would say it is the automobile industry is showing that the world is ready for something different. For hundreds of years we've been stuck in the old ways. With just the first aircraft with the Wright brothers to where we are today, just fuel. We know that we need to find something else, and that's in that innovation of, well, how do we do clean air? How do we do less noise? Because that's a big thing. Concorde lost its way because of the noise level. With this hybrid electric aircraft, the takeoff is just 150 feet. So you can basically land anywhere, the top of a parking lot in Tyson's Corner. You can land at the heliport on the west side of New York City. You can land in Boston. So you don't need a lot of infrastructure. And what really shows that we were headed in the right direction was the fact that it's hybrid. So there's less emissions, and emissions has been a big thing in the last 20 years, where everyone is focusing on clean air, efficient vehicles. So we're not relying solely on jet fuel to get us where we need to be.
Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest thing for us, was we were filling in those buckets of emissions and even time, because you don't have to go to a traditional airport to fly from Dallas International to John F. Kennedy. You can now fly from these small fields. We have proven that you can fly off of the grass. There's a small airport that we did the test that showed that there's no damage to the fields. We did the demo at Fort Eustis in Virginia, where um we showed exactly what this aircraft can do. And I think it's because it's doing things a lot of people didn't generally think can happen. Um, was what captivating the audience and getting us all these LOIs and getting so much interest from so many different companies. So it's definitely exciting, and I think part of the big change for us is that we're also working with the government on on the technology
Good.
to not do the nine-seater passenger, but also a cargo. So it's going to help reduce costs at the end of the day in terms of fuel and where you can land. So um, the environment is right for it. People are willing to accept the change, and I've had many instances where it was described as, think of the Prius. This is what this aircraft would be, the Prius of aircraft. And that's how you get people thinking about it, and they're excited about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that analogy. And kind of the technology that goes into the Prius.
Hmm.
Uh, you guys are incorporating some of that. Not, I mean, it's a little bit farther than just, hey, I'm using electric and I'm using, the gas, but some of the recoup methods and all those kind of things that are kind of in the Prius and other electrical cars,
Hmm.
you guys are incorporating that and adapting that to the aviation industry. Um,
Yes.
and I guess why hybrid? Like, why not just purely electric? I mean, if you get the greatest carbon reduction by going purely electric, um, why not just go straight purely electric?
I think this may be a great question for one of the engineers, but my operations mind is the weight of the batteries. You're still trying to make this aircraft perform in 150 feet takeoff and landing. And from what I know is that the batteries are very heavy.
They are, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I drive a PEV, and when the batteries died, it took forever and a day for the manufacturer to get the batteries back. So then what happens when it's time to dispose of these batteries? I personally think you're gonna end up with more junk in the environment than you started off with, saying, yeah, we have clean air and stuff like that. Um, but the best part about it, being a PEV owner, is when your battery life runs out, you have fuel to fall back on, and then you regenerate your battery power and you go again.
Yeah.
Like my car, I get 800 miles out of a tank, and it's because of electric and gas, and it's the same concept where we use the technology to get us off the ground for the short takeoff and landing, and then you cruise and you regenerate, and you don't have to just stop and plug in everywhere. And that's the difference between fully electric and the hybrid, is you don't have to stop and charge and go again.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting kind of comparison that you bring this up. And what I like to say is purely electric technology isn't there to keep up with the pace of aviation. So you guys are using this hybrid approach to actually blend that and overcome some of those shortcomings that purely electric has. So you talk about this charging piece of it. The infrastructure is not there for multiple charging, nor again,
Mhm.
I don't want to, as I'm flying to buy back time and to cover a lot of distances. And if I got to stop and charge often, I might as well maybe just drive. And so what
Right.
we saw when we flew the Foundation, we have a Pipistrel Velis Electro, and we flew that from here, which is in Hampton Roads Executive in Chesapeake, Virginia, up to Manassa, your facility. It's about 150 miles. We had to stop 5 times to get there, and I had to
Yep.
charge up each time. And the batteries that we have in Electra are very similar to the one that's in your prototype aircraft now that you guys were using. And but not needless to say, it took a long time to just make it 150 miles.
Mhm.
But what we saw and what we proved out and highlighted is the fact a couple things. One is there's room for technological growth with respect to just purely electric. And if you improve the electric technology, we improve hybrid technology, and so we can reap those benefits there. But there's room for growth in just electrical development and improvement.
Mhm.
The second thing is that the infrastructure for aviation industry infrastructure isn't really set up right now to
Right.
accommodate all the multiple charging. And so I've seen one or two. We have our own charging station here, and we had to bring that on the road with us. So,
Mhm.
and then where we were at the different stops that we took to get there, you know, we essentially needed to use some creative electrical generation techniques or whatever else, because a couple of stops were not off of they were kind of away from any electrical sources whatsoever. And even then, electrical power is coming in. They may not have the 220 or whatever else we needed. So
Mhm.
we brought that infrastructure with us on the road. And so the plane was hopscotching and we were kind of waiting. But all that to say is that the hybrid approach overcomes that need to charge multiple times between. And then you guys are able to benefit from the reduction in noise during the critical phases of flight, the
Mhm.
takeoff and landing phase, and that's where you probably would get the most noise complaints, and then you can light off or be loud up high where no one can really hear you
Right.
or whatever. So, but it was really cool when to kind of see and talk about with you and the other folks at Electra, about both planes because I'm sure some of your top pilots and test pilots have flown the Velis Electro before too. But to kind of talk about that, it was really talk shop. It was really cool, and the fact that from an operations management piece of it, I mean, you're like the puppet master, right? You're kind of like got fingers in everything and all over. So other than electric adoption and development and hybrid approach, what you see anything else in the future for where you see aviation kind of going?
I think that aviation is headed towards the hybrid electric zone rather than fully electric. And as you said, there just isn't the infrastructure for it. So I'd like to say, Electra is the pioneer in this piece where we can really say it's this little company that started off in Manassas with just a handful of people and has exploded into taking over the world like Pinky and the Brain, right? Um, so I think for the future of aviation, it will go into, you know, the hybrid electric way, and then us developing the technology that is needed for, 100 plus passenger aircraft. So I think we're constantly doing our research and constantly trying to develop more on the technology, and if we stick to that path, we we'd get to where we're creating the future of general aviation, and where it's not just thought of as um, you know we're a manufacturer, but we're paving the way for direct aviation. That's the term that we've been using. It's, you can jump in your car, get to this parking lot, take off in the aircraft, and then you don't have to land in another airport. So we're getting everyone directly where they need to be in a short time, and not having to stop and recharge for a 150-mile commute. You have to stop so many times, but you can just get there really fast, get to your business, and head back home the same day.
Yeah. Well, I know you talk about how busy you are during the day, and we're getting to the annex. I got to let you go. Keep doing being the puppet master there as the operations manager. But I did want to ask you this one question. And this, like, you talk about how much work the different jobs. I'm sure there's more to Malissa than just work. What kind of things do you do for fun, like just outside of work and those kind of things?
I'm not sure if most people think this is fun, but one of the things I do is I started an aviation club at my son's elementary
Oh,
school.
really? Okay.
Yeah, and most STEM programs are geared towards older kids, fifth grade and up. And I wanted to get the younger ones excited about it. So I
Yeah.
started it for the second grade because I feel like first and kindergarten, they're a little too all over the place. And so second grade was just the right point to get them introduced to it. And I told them that if they don't remember anything about it, at least learn the phonetic alphabet. And you will be surprised how many of these kids have learned the phonetic alphabet.
Really?
And I told them, as you move on in life, you use it. Or you'll hear somebody use it and it'll trigger to you. I learned that when I was in second grade. I do quick introductions to um, hot air balloons, to gliders, helicopters, aircraft, even kites, anything that uses thrust and drag, teaching them that basic concept. And if it sticks with one out of the 10 children in the class, we have a future aviator
Oh,
with
yeah,
us,
definitely.
So they're all excited by it. And then we actually do physical activities where we bring in we own our own drones. So they get to see what a drone is up close and personal, what a drone can do. They can build their own kites, build their little gliders. Outside of that, chairperson of the board of Let's Go Up, and we're focused on introducing aviation to lower income kids and kids who wouldn't normally know that aviation exists. And I support it because I didn't know aviation existed outside of engineering until I took that one class, the introduction to aviation. And I want other kids to realize you have the chance to get into aviation. It's not just the kids who can afford to go to the fancy technical colleges that we have around, but you can be an A&P mechanic and you don't have to go to tech, or you can be part of aviation, be the business side of it.
Yeah.
Um, this program also introduces them to flying, so we give these kids a chance to do it. So as I say that, I'm trying to introduce my son to it. I think that jet fuel runs in his blood, and he uses the hangar as his playground. But that's who I am outside of work. Is I have a 7-year-old son. My husband and I try to take him everywhere that we can, just introducing him to many things. And I've told him he's checked off so many things on his frat boy bucket list that he doesn't have to worry about it in college. He don't have
Yeah.
to face it. He's been to the Oshkosh Air Show, and that has been something on my list when I was in college.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he has a head start on me. He's been on the airfields already here at Manassas. He's been on the side of the runway. So, those are different things that most people wouldn't think it's fun,
No,
but
I,
for
well,
us, that's just like,
yeah, I would say I think it's fun too. You're much like me and the people that we surrounded by is live and breathe aviation. Like you
that's
do it
it.
for work and you do it for fun. It's just such a big part of you. It doesn't surprise me, and I'd like to just extend an invitation of, hey, once we get off and like maybe talk on the side or whatever else, let's talk about ways that the different nonprofit and different programs that you're involved with and the organization you're involved with, we can put something together because we're doing a lot of the same things. And just like the big industry of aviation, folks are partnering up and always willing to help out, those kind of things. Let's talk about some of those as well on the side. But
Oh, definitely.
I want to thank you really for just joining me today and just having a conversation. It's been great learning even more about you and learning more about Electra, but just about you and also for the audience to see another side of aviation that we don't really always hear many details about. And the more folks we get involved and kind of let them inform them of these opportunities and these types of jobs, the industry itself is going to be better, and we'll continue to innovate and lead as we go forward. So thanks a
Definitely.
lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. You had me thinking about some things I never even thought about. So, how do I speak to, future aviation? So hopefully I was able to help enlighten at least one person, just
Yeah,
say, oh, okay, well, I don't have to be um technical minded to be in aviation. There's roles for all of us, There's people with many different backgrounds, different culture, different upbringing, and even different gender. We have to admit aviation is mainly male dominated, and seeing different females in it and the impact that they have had, I think it's enlightening and it's empowering that everyone can work on an even playing field. We have a lot of female engineers at Electra. So if anyone wants to think about, okay, well, I'm an engineer and I'm female. How do I get into it? Electra has it. You just check out our jobs and see what works for you.
yeah.
But it's fun. And I agree with you. Let's sync up and let's work on bringing all of these nonprofits together and enlightening kids and showing them that there is more out there that they can reach that they previously thought you had to have this fancy degree or you had to go to these fancy schools to um to get into aviation. You don't, it's just
Yeah.
about connection and being supported by those who are already in the field.
All right, Melissa. Well, thanks again, and appreciate it. And we'll be talking soon.
Yes, thanks, Micah. You take care. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you for joining us for another podcast of Jet Set Learn, where STEM and aviation take off.